The Glenn Beck program. Tonight we've got quite a program for you. Tonight I'm going to introduce you to somebody I think you're going to like. Don't miss a second. Now, let's go back in the time tunnel, shall we? Remember the debate about Obamacare? Yeah, when it was at its peak, and Crazy Glenn was on the air saying this. The left knows that public insurance option will put employer-based private insurance out of business. First of all, I've gained some LBs, haven't I? Wow, and I've gone so white. Anyway, yeah, we knew that. We knew that. Now, remember when I said that because we played the video in their own words that nobody would listen to. I'm not genius. I listen to them, and we get the videotape. Those pushing Obamacare, in their own words, this is what we played for you at the time.
Someone once said to me, this is a Trojan horse for single payer. And I said, well, it's not a Trojan horse, right? It's just right there. I'm telling you, we're going to get there. Over time, slowly, but we'll move away from reliance on employment-based health insurance, as we should.
And next to me was a guy from the insurance company who then argued against the public health insurance option, saying it wouldn't let private insurance compete.
But I don't think we're going to be able to eliminate employer coverage immediately. There's going to be potentially some transition process.
Yeah, I think we're in that transition process right now. Their intent seemed very clear, you know, for anybody who didn't want to play politics. Yet when we pointed this out, we were called liars by a very important man.
When you hear the naysayers claim that I'm trying to bring about government-run health care, know this.
Yes?
They're not telling the truth.
No, apparently not. Shocking new study out for anybody who listened to that guy. It is now found that once Obamacare fully kicks in 2014, the amount of employers that will stop providing their employees with health insurance is vastly greater than expected. Not by me, because it's only 30%. I would expect that it would be a lot higher than that. The 30% of the employers in the country now are saying that they're just going to dump everybody into Obamacare. It's almost like this has been a Trojan horse. Of course, all of that paid for by you. Plus, the study shows employers who have a high awareness of Obamacare's ins and outs, like me, are even more likely to dump employees and send them into Obamacare to the tune of 50%. Oh, this is going to be sweet for your tax dollars. Can you imagine the doctors that you're going to have or not have, or the surgical, things that you could have or not have? Oh, it's going to be great for us. It is. It almost seems like mission accomplished for President Obama, doesn't it? Unless it's just one of those, what does George Soros call them? Unintended consequences. Well, they're so pesky, aren't they? Now that everything is played out, let's go over the film again. Which one was telling the truth about Obamacare? Next on the agenda, the economy and the Middle East and jobs. Who's telling the truth? Well, I'm going to introduce you to a guy that might be telling the truth, one that you can actually hear and feel. You know what I mean? You're like, wow, that sounds right. And maybe he's a guy you could vote for. Don't go anywhere. Well, hello, America. I want to be very careful and talk about the things that we need to talk about tonight. Progressives and their influence in the Middle East. Progressives have now stopped calling themselves progressives. I mean, they're doing it again, but they stopped doing it once they spooked America in 1920. In 1920, this guy was elected. He wasn't a progressive because everybody between 1913 and 1920, everybody's like, this progressive bandwagon is great. And then everybody in America was like, ah, kind of like you are now. Yeah, that's what led to this man's election. Harding won the biggest landslide in presidential election history, 60 to 34%. Yeah. That's when the term liberal became a popular alternative. I'm just a liberal. Really? When liberals started getting a negative connotation more recently, then they started hiding in, in the shadows again, and they started popping up in all kinds of institutions. We're a progressive organization because everybody forgot. They knew you wouldn't read history. Progressive, that made everybody go, ah! So what they did is they said, we're progressive, and we got this institution with all very pro-American sounding names like Center for American Progress. Ooh. That sounds nice. Americans for Prosperity. Americans for all kinds of cool awesomeness. Things like that. Well, guess what's spreading? Yet another American goodie spreading over to the Middle East. Now the Muslim Brotherhood is taking a page right out of the progressive playbook. Banned in Egypt since 1954, the Muslim Brotherhood, and the one that I've been telling you the whole time, run. Run from the Muslim Brotherhood. But no, not the progressives in Washington. No. They say they're good. They're great. Oh, they're sunshine and lollipops. Well, they're changing their names in the fashion of all good My gosh, it looks like the EPA logo, doesn't it? No, it's not. It's not. It's only slightly more evil than the EPA. Yes, it's the Muslim Brotherhood's new logo. They're now legally recognized as the, you ready? Freedom and Justice Party. Oh, well, I was so wrong on this one. If I had this thing plugged in anymore, I'd call the president and apologize and tell him I was wrong. Man, you guys were so right. I didn't know the Muslim Brotherhood. I thought they were the guys with the big, huge swords. They were like, ah! No, they're the Freedom and Justice Party. They're just a happy-go-lucky secularist organization who only want freedom and justice. And who isn't for freedom and justice? Oh, I almost forgot. Another update in Egypt. They just released its longest-standing political prisoner, a leading figure in the radical Islamist jihad, and a guy suspected of assassinating President Sadat. Yeah, he was gunned down 2 years after signing a peace treaty with President Jimmy Carter, Sadat. More freedom, or is that justice? I'm not sure. I'll have to ask the party. Now here's the VP of the University of Tripoli in Lebanon, who says something very, very interesting. Gang, we have got to get together with these crazy cats in the Middle East because they've got it down. Listen to this. This is a videotape where he's talking about how 9/11 was a show produced by the Jews. Watch.
أن ضربة 11 أيلول التي حصلت في نيويورك كانت مسرحية أمريكية هزلية كبرى ضحك فيها على العالم الإسلامي. عندما نقرأ ما كتبه المنصفون من الغرب، عندما نقرأ كتاب أحد الصحفيين الفرنسيين وعنوانه بالفرنسية aucun avion n'a été écrasé à Pentagon، يعني إن أي طائرة لم تقع في البنتاغون، والتي فيها يفضح حال اليهود الذين صنعوا هذا الفيلم الأمريكي الطويل لاستباحة العراق وأفغانستان وكل العالم الإسلامي. عندما نقرأ كل هذا لا يمكن.
I'm sorry, it was the White House who wanted to know why I wasn't talking about Wiener again. I don't know. Maybe this is a little more important. What do you think? The Arab Spring. Breathe it in. It's great. Freedom and justice is in the air. Here's one more little videotape from the Middle East now. This is a Muslim cleric on Sharia. Watch carefully because he's telling you about compassion.
الحكمة والرحمة تقتضي أن يقتل القاتل وأن يرجم الزاني المحصن وأن يقطع يد السارق بالحق. هذه رحمة. أما أقطع إيد سارقة خائنة عشان أحمي الأمة كلها، هذه رحمة وشفقة وحكمة. بالك يا مولانا، كيف يكون الجلد؟ ناس فاهمة غلط. أولا، من الذي يجلد؟ الذي يجلد رجل وسط. ما تجيبليش بقى تايسون أو محمد علي كلاي الله يديله الصحة يجلد الراجل ده، مع أول كرباج هيموته. ولا تجيب لي واحد ضعيف عنده أنيميا وعايز محلول معالجة الجفاف يضربه، ده تعبان ده. هات واحد وسط من الرجال.
Oh, I should take you the hand. That's compassion. It's going to be a fun ride right into hell, isn't it? Can I ask a question? Is there anybody that understands anymore that there is good and evil in the world? And they're pretty darn clear which one's which? It's kind of like light and dark. I don't know. I've never walked into a room that was completely dark going, wow, it's so bright in here. Let's turn down the lights. No, I can tell when it's light and I can tell when it's dark. I can tell good versus evil. I can see it. Is there anybody else that can see it anymore? Hello, Washington. Anyone in Washington that's awake? Is it just us? Is it just really? There are people who are awake. And gang, if you're awake, quite honestly, there are times I just think, to hell with everybody else. You just do what you're supposed to do. Because you can't wake these people up. They're still busy playing politics and everything else. It's up to you. Open your eyes. And you know what? People will tell, I'm wide awake, and that's not happening. Those guys over there, there's no need to pay attention to them. Let me tell you something. You know who those people are? Those people are like my dad. My dad he worked all the time. And he would lay on the couch and we'd be watching Wild Wild West. You remember that show? Love that show. And we watched Wild Wild West and he would fall asleep. And I'd go, Dad, wake up. You're missing Artemis and he's got this like midget guy. And so my dad would always say this, I'm just resting my eyes. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. You're asleep. That's what many people in America are doing right now. I'm not asleep, I'm just resting my eyes. No, you're not. You're dead asleep. Now, are we going to find any leadership in this country? I'm going to introduce you to a guy who speaks passionately about many topics. The Middle East is one of them. I saw him speak in Chicago. I have never asked to meet a celebrity. I think I've asked to meet Michael Bublé and B.B. King, but that was a real disappointment because I think B.B. was kind of hitting on my wife, but I could be wrong. But she is hot. I will give her. I mean, B.B.'s got good taste. Those are the only two celebrities that I've ever asked to meet. And one more. I've never asked to meet a politician, but I was sitting in, I don't even know the name of this arena, and I was going to give a speech, and he was speaking before me, and I honestly didn't want to be there because I don't like being around a bunch of politicians. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching these politicians speak, and this guy gets up. Now, I've never seen him speak before, and it was one of the best speeches I've ever seen. It was riveting, and the thing I liked about it is he didn't care. He just said what he meant and meant what he said. And when he was done, it wasn't, God bless America, and hey, Judy, is that you? We got to get together. None of that. He just finished and he walked off. I loved him. I looked at one of my guys and I said, can I meet him? Because I think I'm a fan. I wanted to bring him in because I think we have, how many days left do we have on this program? 22 days left before the end of this program. And by the way, if you want to know where I'm going, what I'm doing, you can go to glennbeck.com right now. There's information up there, glennbeck.com. Go there now and find out what's happening in my life and how we can connect. Anyway, man, I wanted to bring him in because I think we have, how many days left do we have on this program? 22 days left before the end of this program. And by the way, if you want to know where I'm going, what I'm doing, you can go to glennbeck.com right now. There's information up there, glennbeck.com. Go there now and find out what's happening in my life and how we can connect. Anyway, I brought him on tonight because I wanted to talk to him about jobs in the Middle East and the head of GM who wants to now impose a $1 a gallon gas tax on you. Yeah, I love him. His name is Herman Cain, the guy who doesn't want to impose a gas tax.
Hello, man.
How are you, sir?
Magnificent. Thank you.
Good to see you.
It's a pleasure.
Good to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
I have been watching you and listening to you, and I think you're, you know, people say that we don't have anybody to choose from. I think we have a few people out there, not necessarily the ones that everybody is crowing about right now, that we could pick from that could actually run this country. I wanted to get your opinion on a few things.
Yes.
First of all, Are we looking at the good and evil in the Middle East, and is it really clear to see which one is which?
It's real clear to those who have their eyes open. My dad used to say he was resting his eyes also. And a lot of people are resting their eyes. Glenn, it is clear as day. When I was doing my radio show for the last 5 years, that's when my eyes became more opened.
Why?
Just like because I looked at the issues more than just what was on the surface, I had to look a little deeper and look a little deeper. And the deeper I looked at the issues and what wasn't being done in Washington, D.C., and some of the things that were being done, like forcing legislation down the throats of the American people, it's scary. So, yes, it is as clear as day.
Are we... tell me where you stand on President Obama's speech on the 1967 lines.
I believe that he threw Israel under the bus. Secondly, I believe it was discourteous, knowing that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was going to be here 2 days later, to do that and then have him in Washington, D.C. It's rather hypocritical.
And then leave.
And then leave. I even had a reporter ask me, did I think that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, was he rude to the president after he gave him a tongue lashing in the White House?
Right.
I said, no. He had every right to let the president know how he felt about saying what he said when he said it.
When the president says the Muslim Brotherhood, it's not a problem. Oh, I'm sorry, the Freedom and Justice Party.
Yes.
Not a problem. They a problem?
It's a problem.
Why?
Been a problem from the beginning because it's a terrorist organization. They can change the name all they want to, but it's not going to change their stripes.
You're going to get heat because I've already seen it. You get heat because you said in response to a question, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but this is the way it's being spun. You said you would not appoint a Muslim to anybody in your administration.
The exact language was, when I was asked, would you be comfortable with the Muslim in your cabinet? And I said, no, I would not be comfortable. I didn't say I wouldn't appoint one, because if they can prove to me that they are putting the Constitution of the United States first, then they would be a candidate just like everybody else. My entire career, I've hired good people, great people, regardless of their religious orientation.
So wait a minute, are you saying that it is that Muslims have to prove there has to be some loyalty proof?
Yes. To the Constitution of the United States of America.
Well, would you do that to a Catholic, or would you do that to a Mormon?
Nope, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Because there is a greater dangerous part of the Muslim faith than there is any of these other religions. I know that there are some Muslims who talk about, but we are a peaceful religion. And I'm sure that there are some peace-loving Muslims.
I know them. I know them.
I know some too.
Yeah, okay.
I absolutely do. So this isn't casting a label on all Muslims. When that guy asked me that question in the middle of a rapid-fire Q&A session in Iowa, it came out of nowhere, number one. Let me tell you what was in the back of what I immediately thought of, which is why I answered the way that I did. I heard Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu give a speech a few months after 9/11/2001. And I will never forget what he said in that speech. So that's my point of reference. Number one, terrorism is going to last a long time. He said, this is what Americans have got to learn. And he said, number two, they want to kill all of you. No question. That wasn't great. That was real clear.
So your Constitution thing is because of the Sharia law, which everyone denies is happening, but we see Sharia law being creeping into our society.
Yes, and people are denying it. Are you familiar with what happened in Oklahoma in 2008? They had on the ballot in Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. 2008, they had it on the ballot. 70% of the voters said no Sharia law in Oklahoma courts. Then the local unit of CAIR, Council of American Islamic Relations, got a federal judge to issue an injunction to prevent carrying out the law.
Okay, so how do you, because people hear this at home, and all they do is they get frustrated.
Yes.
Because 70%, I mean, I get frustrated because really the 30% who said no, Sharia law is cool.
Yeah.
But 70% say that it's overturned and nothing can happen. And so it's like the Wiener thing. I said yesterday on the show, what difference does it make to you? What are you going to do about it?
Right.
Everybody sits around and they whine about it and they say, well, they're all, and nothing changes. And so you get angry.
Yes.
So what does the average person do when they hear something like that?
What the average person should do is they should write letters to their editors of their newspapers if they still read them, because as you know, a lot of them aren't reading them. They should make their opinions known. But here's one of the biggest things that they can do, which is what's happening in this country. Get active with somebody, with some organization. Don't just sit there, do something. This is one of the reasons that I was inspired to consider running for president of the United States of America.
Back in just a second. In the next few days, I think I'm going to show you a few people that I find inspiring and that I think you should consider for president. Some I agree with, some I don't. Herman Cain is one of them. And the things that I have heard come out of your mouth, I agree with. I want to we were just talking in the break that I asked if you believe that our allies have changed, that this president is changing the very landscape of who are allies. Great Britain, yes. Does he consider them an ally, really?
I don't think so. He sent back the bus.
Bust, yeah.
Okay.
Israel?
Absolutely not. He threw them under the bus.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
If Israel were attacked, do you think we would defend them?
Not with this president. Not with this president. And I have gone on the record to say that if I'm president of the United States of America, if Israel is attacked, you have attacked the United States of America. That's how strongly I feel about building the relationship.
Why do you feel strongly?
I feel strongly about it because Israel has been our most consistent ally and friend in that part of the world. We have shared values in terms of human rights. We have shared values in terms of religious beliefs. We have so much in common with Israel, and they have really stood courageously in that part of the world surrounded by their enemies. And oh, by the way, speaking of courage, you're going to be doing Restoring Courage in Israel. I'm going to be there with you.
You're going to come?
Yes, I'm coming. Yes. Look,
Herman Cain, what a man.
Yeah, I'm going to be there. Look, I love the fact that you're going to do Restoring Courage in Israel, which has been one of the most courageous nations on the planet.
Yeah.
We need some courage back here at home.
Do you think people understand that? Do you agree that Israel is a keystone?
Yes, yes.
And you pull that out in the West, collapse?
Collapse.
Okay.
Because then all of the attention, instead of being on trying to destroy Israel and, you know, rattling the sabers and this, all, then they're going to redirect all of that hate.
Right.
They're going to redirect all that hate.
You were a Fed president of the Fed, chairman of the Fed.
Yes.
In which one? Kansas City. Kansas City.
Yes.
Which I'm really kind of dicey about, and I want to talk to you about that later.
Right.
So you can read the tea leaves and see what's going on around the world.
Yes.
Europe about to fall? Economically?
Yes. It's getting weaker. The only question is how fast would it fall?
Okay.
Started with Greece. Mm-hmm. Now you got other problems in some of the other countries. And what's going to happen is it's going to depend upon how they choose to deal with the problem. So it's headed in that direction.
Unemployment now is 9.1. We were promised it would never go over 8 or 8.8 if we do all of the things that we have done now.
Yes.
It's 9.1. Things are getting weaker here in America. Would you agree?
I agree?
I believe it's intentionally being made weak. Do you?
I do too also.
Texas created 38% of all of the jobs in the last year. 38% of all the jobs in America created in Texas. Except we're going, that's the state the president continually throws under the bus.
Right.
Why is that?
Because this president, unfortunately, has no clue, with all due respect, of what creates jobs. Right to work states, lower taxes, lower regulations, no government mandates. Texas has one of the most business-friendly environments in this country.
You know, one of the best things about Texas is it tells its state government to go home, come back every other year.
Now, that I was about to say, that's another reason Texas is doing so well.
Exactly right.
They meet once every 2 years, and then they go home. They get out of Dodge.
And people would say here that in America, you can't do that. They'd say, well, what are they going to do? I don't know. Texas is getting it done.
They are getting it done. And a lot of other states, you know, in Georgia, where I'm reside now, they meet once a year, but it's for a limited amount of time, and then they go home. I think that we probably need to do that in Washington, D.C.
I think President Obama is actually working on that plan to send Congress home. They're almost irrelevant as it is.
But it's one of the most it's not rocket science, Glenn.
Yeah, I know.
The reason that my message has been resonating with people because I've been talking about common sense solutions, and that's what's resonating with people. It's common sense. If you create business-friendly environments, like we need to do for this entire country, this is why the economic approach that I have been talking about, talking to people around the country, lower top corporate tax rates, lower the individual tax rates, make it 25% maximum. That happens to coincide with what's in Ryan's plan, but we didn't corroborate on it. It just makes sense. Suspend taxes on repatriated foreign profits. Take capital gains taxes to zero. Zero. Don't compromise somewhere in the middle. We need it at zero, and here's why. This economy is not going to come out of this stale level that we are, this stagnant, anemic growth, in the next year and 6 months. President Obama's senior advisor, Austin Goolsbee, was on a TV show Sunday, and I followed him. He was sitting there very uncomfortably trying to defend why that 9.1 number is there. And he made a statement that is true, that a lot of people didn't even pick up on. He said, and I quote, "The private sector is going to have to lead this recovery." And he's absolutely right.
That's why he's leaving the Obama administration.
That's why he's leaving the administration, because it's not in the DNA of this president or this administration to lower taxes, reduce regulations.
They do not believe in the private sector.
They don't believe in the private sector.
Right.
No, they do not believe in the private sector.
That's why they say the most important jobs that they can create are government jobs.
Are government jobs.
Yeah.
And we have seen what $1 trillion has done in terms of that. It made government bigger, created some more government jobs, but it did not stimulate this kind of economy.
When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit about GM, because GM, the head of GM, made one of the most amazing comments I've ever seen anybody make. And he said that there should be a $1 a gallon gas tax put on gasoline. That's the president of GM that just got all of our money.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that here in just a second.
Yes.
All right, the average cost for a gallon of gas is now $3.75. That's more than $1 than it cost you a year ago. Apparently, that's not good enough for our good friends at GM. Your tax dollars went to bail out. Nope. According to their CEO, Dan Ackerson, they are now pushing for higher gas prices. The government is thinking about approving up to a 6% increase in annual fuel efficiency levels, which means the cost of cars will go up by $3,500. But Ackerson has a better idea. He said, quote, "You know what I'd rather have them do, and this will make my Republican friends puke. As gas has got to go down here now, we ought to just slap a 50-cent or $1 tax on a gallon of gas." I'm sorry, Dan, the recipient of all of those tax dollars, only your Republican friends, they're the only ones that buy gas? Because I've seen your crappy new electric car, nobody's buying it. I think some of your crappy Democratic friends are buying that crappy car, too. A 50-cent gas tax would make everyone puke. $1 might make me puke my heart and lungs. There is a bipartisan pukage going on here with GM. And that's what happens when gas goes up. So now everything that if it's being shipped to you, your food, everything, clothes, everything goes up. So the good news is the poor and the middle class won't have any food in their tummies when they start vomiting over the gas prices, if they're Republicans. All right, by the way, the newest GM CEO is Dan Ackerson. He used to work for the Carlyle Group. That's a global private equity firm that manages $106 billion. Yeah, some of the players in the Carlyle Group, they're great. George Soros, we would have seen that one coming. Keep in mind, this is the same General Motors that got $51 billion in government money. Then last year, the administration applauded the car company when it repaid the $7 billion in taxpayer money. GM patted itself on the back saying, "Oh, we paid everybody back 5 years ahead of schedule." No, not really. Since then, the government has sold a bunch of its stock in GM. The car company has paid back more of its loan through TARP money and money that's coming from the company's share in stock. And we're losing, I think it's $18 billion on this deal. Even Vice President Biden's economic advisor was confused about whether or not the company used TARP money to pay back its loans. "It's really hard to know," he said, "because the funds are mixed together. It's like trying to put an omelet back together." Oh, yeah. Meanwhile, Jamie Dimon, he is the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, asked Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke if U.S. regulators are actually preventing our economy from recovering. Watch this.
Now we're told there could be even higher capital requirements, so-called SIFI charges and G-SIFI charges, et cetera, and we know there are 300 rules coming. Has anyone bothered to study the cumulative effect of all these things? And do you have a fear, like I do, that when we look back and look at them all, that they will be a reason that it took so long that our banks, our credit, our businesses, and most importantly, job creation start going again? Is this holding us back at this point?
Okay. Let me go to Herman Cain, nominee for President of the United States. You were a Fed chair.
Yes.
In Kansas City. So you know all this stuff. You also were a businessman. You ran Godfather's, right?
Yes.
Godfather's Pizza?
Yes.
Very successful in both of those positions. Is this unintentional? Is this, are the things being done by Bernanke and the administration, and now through GM, is this just a bunch of really moronic people, the dumbest group of people ever seen, or do they know what they're doing?
Neil, I apologize.
Right.
Glenn.
That's all right.
For about the first 12 months of the Obama administration, I hesitated in believing that they could make this many bad decisions collectively. So you can only conclude that there's a certain amount of intent to do some of these things.
This is because this is a charge that I have wrestled with. I think every American has.
Yes.
You don't want to believe that there are people that would intentionally do stuff.
Exactly, but look at this. Look, go back to the guy who wants to slap a gas tax on.
Okay.
If you do that with gasoline being at $3.74 or 75 cents a gallon, $4 is the tipping point.
Mm-hmm.
Analyses have shown, studies have shown, that once you go past $4 a gallon, it goes past the tipping point, which means that the average family has no choice other than to take it out of another pocket to buy gas to go back and forth to work and take the kids back and forth to school. Now, suppose we go past that tipping point, which we could if King Abdullah and the boys decide that they want to reduce, the supply of oil.
Mm-hmm.
Ahmadinejad, he is the one who's trying to get them to reduce it so the price can go up because he doesn't care about the economy in this country. So now, add a tax on top of that. What that does is it puts a downward pressure on the economy. And this anemic economy that we have now, 1.8% in the first quarter, would become even worse. They keep making all of these moves saying that we aren't going to have a double-dip recession. But if cumulatively you add another gas tax, and if at the mercy of OPEC and them deciding how much they want to pull out of chain, we could end up in a double-dip recession.
Now, OPEC, Saudi Arabia actually was the only one apparently saying that maybe we should increase oil production. But I don't know if we disagree on this. I don't think it's oil production that we have to worry about. I mean, we have all the oil, but it's all in the ground.
Exactly.
We don't have our own energy, so we are completely screwed if they want to yank our chain.
Exactly.
But it's really not how much oil is out there alone. A lot of this has to do with the dollar being inflated.
Yes.
Okay, hang on.
Yes.
Let's explain that when we come back. There's several things I want to talk to you about, but one of them is about the Fed. Do you believe the Fed should be audited?
Yes.
Yes?
It's not going to be an issue that I'm going to take the leadership on.
Okay.
I worked on the Fed in the 90s I don't think they're going to find anything. I would not block auditing the Fed, but it's not an issue that I'm excited about.
You're not a fan of Ben Bernanke's?
No, I'm not a fan of Ben Bernanke's. I had high hopes for Ben Bernanke when he first got the job. I talked to some friends that I still have in the Federal Reserve System, and they had high hopes also.
I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to spend an hour with you sometime just talking about the Fed, because I think the Fed should be ended myself. But the inflation, well, here's one of the reasons why the Fed should be ended. Now you have Elizabeth Warren, who is now part of the Fed in the Treasury Department. Treasury and the Fed have just become like this. They're really controlling everything, are they not?
And that's the problem. The Fed and the Treasury have become like this. It's called politicization of the Federal Reserve. Here's the source of the inflation. $14 trillion in debt. And when the Treasury cannot sell those notes, the Federal Reserve is buying some of them in order to help to pay the bills. It becomes a vicious cycle. Now, back in the mid-'90s, when Alan Greenspan was head of the Fed, and I was on the board of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City, we didn't have that problem. Alan Greenspan never would have thought about trying to prop up the Treasury because the debt was so bad. That is the source.
I heard him this week say, I'm surprised that they're doing this. This is a historic opportunity to reduce the debt. And they're just, yes,
exactly. And so people sometimes, Glenn, want to say, because I was on the board of the Federal Reserve back in the 90s, that they want to hold that against me as
You're
a candidate.
part of the cabal.
I'm part of the cabal. No, I'm not. Go back and look at what we did back then. We did our job back then. We didn't make these sort of mixed decisions that's adding to the problem.
China selling 97% of all of their short-term debt. Is that a problem for us?
That is a problem for us, because China is starting to worry that we are not going to make it.
Are we?
If we don't change the leadership in the White House and change control of Congress, there is a chance that we may not make it.
Can I tell you something? That doesn't mean much to me. If we don't change, we get changed. It seems like we play musical chairs. They say one thing when they're out, and then they do the exact opposite. Does it really make a difference?
It can make a difference, Glenn.
How do we know? How do we know who to vote for?
You won't know for sure. You're going to have to look at someone different. You're going to have to look. It all ultimately comes down to, every time, who do you think you can trust? That's what it comes down to. You will never be 100% sure. President Obama convinced a lot of people that he had America's best interest at heart. And if you look at the actions and the decisions that he has made, I am not convinced that he's had America's best interest at heart. And it hurts me to say that, because of my respect for the office of the president.
Do you hate him because he's black? Is that what it is?
Is he black? Gee, I'm glad you told me that.
Back in just a minute. Back in just a minute. Herman Cain is a 2012 Republican presidential candidate, and he has said just, I think it was on Monday, that you won't accept a bill. You won't accept a bill that's over 3 pages long. Ever. You made a promise.
Glenn, that's an exaggeration. If that's all the media has to do is to find a statement, it was an exaggeration. Now, what I said after that, they didn't print in the story. I was trying to drive home the point. I would only sign clean bills, bills with no earmarks, and bills that the American public can read and understand. That was the point of making the 3-page long. It was not an absolute promise. They will only be 3 pages long.
Why are you running for president? I mean, who really wants this? Who wants this
I
job?
feel compelled to run, Glenn. Started in 1999 when my first grandchild was born. And so help me, the first time I looked in that little baby's face, the first thought that went through my mind, and I did not know what it meant at the time, what do I do to make this a better world and a better nation? Didn't know what that meant. I ran for the United States Senate. Didn't win. I said, okay, God,
that ain't it.
That ain't it. I didn't win. Then I was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in 2006.
Wow.
2006, diagnosed with stage 4 cancer with on a 30% chance of living. That was 5 years ago. 5 years ago, because God said, not yet. So I kept praying, and it finally led me to the decision.
Clean bill of health now?
Clean bill of health. I was finally led with a lot of prayer, a lot of soul searching, that this is what I'm supposed to do, is run for President of the United States of America, because it's not about us. It's about them and those little faces, like the 3 that I have.
Herman, I have to tell you, I think you're real.
Thank you,
sir. And I appreciate that. And I know your slogan is, let's get real.
Yes, sir.
But we thought, Tiffany and my producer thought it should be, yes, we Cain. Yes,
That'll work.
Yes, we Cain. Thank you
Good
very
job.
much, sir.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Back in just a minute. I want you to spend a few minutes with a guy who we have flown in from China, Jim Rogers. He is a guy everyone should listen to. Talk about where our country, where our world is actually headed, and the role China plays in the world's future. And you'll always remember where you were when you heard this. Anthony Weiner's wife is pregnant. From New York, good night, America.